Are you ready for the rematch? Because it's coming. Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes, Bills Chiefs right now. And it's going to come down to a fist fight once again. Today, we're going to go over all the details that you need with Matt Derrick from ChiefsDigest.com. Welcome to Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. Hope you're doing well. We're brought to you by Jase Medical today. If you want to get 5 antibiotics that can help you with all kinds of ailments provided in a simple case that you can get right now for $20 off of your order, go to Jase Medical and use our code LOCKEDON. That's JASE medical.com. Lot to go over here. Injuries will play a factor. We don't have any huge update on that to this point. So we're going to focus on a couple of things that are going to be related. One, what is the status of Travis Kelce? Can he continue to raise his game through this postseason? What does the offseason look like, especially now that his brother has announced that he's going to be retiring? How do the Chiefs take the offense up a notch and double down on what they've been doing? But bottom line, we'll start, Matt, at really what is the core of this process. And you can find all of Matt's work over at ChiefsDigest.com, as well as here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, where we start here on YouTube. And I'd ask you to click the like if you're digging this so far, or if you like it here in 5 minutes, as well as the sub and the bell. And then check out RGR Football, NFL33.com, Rogue Analytics. I got 1,000 things going. Matt is nice and centralized at ChiefsDigest.com. Matt, this is still a fight to me. This is like two brothers separated by more than a year, so like it's the little brother tagging along, like they're just a pest and they won't go away and they keep fighting you within an inch of your life, right? I don't know if this is going to be a 13-second game, but this feels like this is going to go down to the wire, just like a lot of them do with this team.
Yeah, I mean, and it feels like it even in a year in which neither one of these teams are themselves. I mean, you look at the past battles that these two teams have had, and especially in the postseason, and I think those were better teams than the ones that'll be meeting on Sunday. They made it to the postseason in very different manners. I mean, obviously the Bills struggled a little bit in the beginning of the season, definitely in the middle stretch of the season when they ended up falling to 500, fire their offensive coordinator, and then they had a little turnaround. But there are some striking similarities still about these teams, which is that, and where I think that this game will be decided on Sunday. Which team makes mistakes? Which team can avoid the costly turnovers? Which team can avoid shooting themselves in the foot? That's what both these teams have done, especially offensively this year. I think the Chiefs obviously have the better defense, so I think that gives them a little bit of an advantage. But even if we go back to just a little over a month ago, back in Week 14, this was a nip and tuck battle that came down to one play. I wouldn't necessarily expect anything different this time around.
I agree with you, and it's a dichotomy for me. Two teams with elite quarterbacks, as we talk about every offseason, who's going to go where and do what. Now it comes down to eliminate quarterback mistakes, being able to run the ball, and being able to defend the run. That's what this is going to come down to. And there's just such a trippy year in that way. I do agree that I think the Chiefs defense is in better shape. I think they're performing better, and I think they have better reserves should there be injuries or something like that within the span of that ball game. But there's just something electric about what Josh Allen does, even against this team, who does play them very tough. They got a couple of plays from their secondary last week, giving Mahomes a little bit more to think about than maybe I thought, before that last ball game. Here's a key, folks, from the Friday show where we give you the keys to victory. Know where Jordan Poyer is all the time. Okay, there's your cheat sheet. But Matt, when it comes down to it, what's the X factor? We know how close all these things are. What can separate these two teams or be something that we haven't seen in the last meeting or three?
Yeah, I mean, if you just even go back to last month and the meeting between these two teams, I think that there's two things that the Chiefs will have this time around that they didn't have last time. And one obviously is Isaiah Pacheco. I think that's huge. I mean, the Chiefs being able to have that advantage is absolutely humongous. I mean, hey, the Chiefs were able to get some productive runs. They were able to get some production out of the backfield without Isaiah, but there's no doubt. I mean, he gives them a different dimension, I think, especially in what will once again be a cold environment in Buffalo. That's the kind of game that Isaiah Pacheco was built for. So that's an advantage. And the other thing, I mean, I talked about that last game coming down to one play, but really the only reason it came down to one play is that the Chiefs struggled early in the game with dealing with James Cook out of the backfield and figuring out a couple of things because they were playing without Brian Cook. And this was, I think, the second game that the Chiefs played without Cook. The first one was the Raiders, and the Raiders really took advantage of his absence until, the Chiefs kind of figured things out a little bit. It took them about a quarter and a half to figure out how to deal with Cook and the Bills offense without Brian Cook. And once they did, they settled down and really held the Bills in check, held them down to, 2 field goals in the second half. So I think the fact that the Chiefs know what they have now, they've been playing better football defensively. They've kind of adjusted to not having Brian Cook. They'll have Drew Tranquil this time around, which I think will also be a tremendous advantage. But just those two things, the adjustment to life without Brian Cook and having Isaiah Pacheco, I think are 2 huge advantages in the Chiefs' favor this time around.
I agree with you completely, and I'm glad you brought up Drew Tranquil because that's where I was going to go. Not just inside and stopping the run through the B gaps in particular, but his ability to then turn and chase, because you're going to have to run Allen some of these. There's going to be some called runs, at least some RPOs for Allen and he's one of the first guys that I think of outside of Willie Gay that can actually corral Josh Allen before he gets a full head of steam. And I think that's key in slowing down just how many yards he's going to gain on you. It's not against Nick Bolton, who's good against the run, but in this particular matchup, it feels like the slashing style of Cook and what Josh Allen can do, I think Tranquil's a little bit more important. Do you agree, or do you think I'm missing something?
No, I don't think you're wrong at all. I mean, especially if you get into, third downs and some, maybe even some specific Josh Allen type run situations, having the ability to have both Bolton and Tranquil on the field at the same time is a huge advantage. I mean, you're not going to see it often, but I think you're going to see it often enough because you're right. I mean, as a spy, as a quarterback spy, I think Drew Tranquil is better equipped for that. I mean, he's got maybe a little bit more speed. I don't think he necessarily has the strength of Nick Bolton, but there's a trade-off there. But if you've got Tranquil coming in to play the spy, that lets Bolton do some other things too. I mean, and now I think both those guys, when they are on the field in that same situation, they can both play a little bit more aggressive. If it's just one of them that's out there in the mic position, then I think that, some of the aggressiveness of that position kind of gets taken away. You kind of have to watch everything. You can't let, a play get behind you, but at the same time, you have to be ready to make a play in front of you. But you get those two on the field, and even if it's only a half dozen or a dozen snaps a game, I mean, I think that's a tremendous, opportunity, especially because those are going to be the situations where you're most likely to see whether it's a designed Josh Allen run or it's a Josh Allen third down play. I mean, that's where I think you're more likely to see both those guys on the field, and I think it can make a difference.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's going to be really interesting to see how they counteract each other and what the process becomes. That first 15 is going to be great, and then I think both of them are going to have to feel their way through. What will that look like, and how's the offense respond? How does it take the next step? That's coming up next after a message from some of our friends. This show right now and this particular episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. Sometimes we all need a little bit of something to get it off of our chest or get down to the bottom of the problem. Certain things can start to get at you, and you got to alleviate some of that. Whether it's red zone tendencies that the Chiefs don't have or not running enough power blocking. There's a lot of things that I could get off my chest right here. But it's important to let that out, and especially if it's something that's unbalancing your life or giving you a little bit too much to think about. If you want to say what you really want to feel about something, that's the way to go for it. And I think being able to have that ability, whether it's football or other scenarios, it comes down to dealing with the fact that you're a Chiefs fan and you have Chiefs fandom frustrations. Therapy can be helpful in a number of ways in your life and certainly in your fandom. Therapy is different for everyone, and there are a lot of folks that have bigger problems outside of sports, and whether you're trying to use that as an alleviation or you just need to get things off of your chest, there are a lot of ways that you can get some help. And it starts with BetterHelp. If you're thinking of trying therapy, give them a try. It's entirely online. It's super flexible. It'll suit to your schedule. You can change therapists at any time. And right now, with betterhelp.com/lockedon, you can get 10% off of your first month. It's at betterhelp, HELP.com/lockedon. And for this playoff run, if you need to get something off of your chest, Chiefs or otherwise, please make sure that you check it out. Now, the other thing that you probably want to get into, because it is super hot right now, is daily fantasy sports. PrizePicks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. They make it easy, exciting, and very simple to get in and battle those numbers. You don't have to fight a bunch of other fans or a bunch of other professionals or sharks or pro players. It gives you a very, very simple number. You either choose more than that number or less than that number. Is Patrick going to throw for 280 yards or not against the Buffalo Bills? Is Isaiah Pacheco going to break 110? That's going to be more or less. You pick 2 to 6 players, you put them together, and that is an entry that you can get behind. They're even going to give you a reboot policy. So if one of those players gets hurt during your ball game, they're going to move them out and get you rebooted there. And it's only on the daily fantasy sports platform that is PrizePicks. It's a policy that you really can't get anywhere else, and you guys do want to check it out. If you want into the action right now, go to PrizePicks.com/LockedOnNFL, and you have to use our code LockedOnNFL, and that's going to get you a first deposit match of $100. You deposit $100, you get a free $100 on top of it. No questions asked. So make sure, if you want to get in there, go to PrizePicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code LockedOnNFL. It's PrizePicks. It is daily fantasy sports made easy. And as much as I like things made easy, the text line is one of the easiest ways for you guys to get some extra information. Hit us at 816-357-8781 and get signed up, and you'll get breaking news, etc., whenever we find it out. Now, the break here, particularly from my point of view, Matt, is that I've been crying about the run game for, 6 seasons at this point, and it's finally circumstances have led. I don't think it's a turning of a leaf for Andy Reid. Circumstances have led to having to run the ball more. My question to you is, it feels to me like there's been a recognition of just how intricate and foundational that is to this offense this season right now. And I think the 24 carries we saw for Isaiah Pacheco, it doesn't necessarily have to be repeated, but it has to be that kind of dedication. 18, 20 is a minimum for me in this coming ball game. Do you see that as a possibility? They came out throwing pretty hard in a very cold game last week. Do you think that this is just a byproduct of the situation with the receivers, or is Andy really starting to focus on balance here in the postseason?
I mean, honestly, probably a little bit of both. But we know it. I mean, if the Chiefs get out of balance in the run pass game, it's usually a couple of factors. I mean, one is it means that Mahomes is probably turning some RPOs into passes that should be runs. And we're also talking about the Chiefs are probably behind. So if they're playing from behind, they're going to throw the ball more. I mean, and that's something that I think that, once again, with this team and this particular team, the strategy, and I think last week really proved it with a little bit of the throwing the football early, was Andy Reid wants to get a lead early, because I think he understands and gets and knows and completely buys into the idea that he's got a defense, and that if he can give this defense a lead, then they're not giving it up. So to a degree, I mean, for the Chiefs, it's the first team to score. If they can get a lead, I think that playing from in front is what they're going to do best. So that's what he's going to want to do. And yes, I mean, running and balance with the pass early on is absolutely critical if they want to do that. But then, the other part of it too is that if they have a lead, they're going to continue to run the football, because they will want to run clock. They'll want to hold on to the possession. They'll want to just drag things out. So, it's, hey, if we get into a game where Isaiah Pacheco only gets, 6 runs, well, we're probably talking about Chiefs fell behind early. Maybe they make a comeback, maybe they don't, but we're probably talking about them playing from behind and not getting back into the ball game until late in the fourth quarter. And in that situation, we know that Andy Reid and his offense is going to end up depending on the pass. So it's kind of, chicken and the egg, which comes first? Do the Chiefs gain control of the game because they're running the football, or do they run the football because they took control of the game? I mean, it's hard to decide which one comes first. But, last week was a great example. I mean, even though they came out with those first 3 throws, and I certainly was in the group that thought 3rd and 10, this is another 3 and out, and this team is in trouble. But after they get the first down, they went to the run. It was critical on that first drive. And that should prove something. I mean, now it doesn't mean exclusively that Andy Reid's going to go with the run. I mean, we know that he considers a lot of things part of the run game. So wide receiver screens and throws to the back, running back out of the backfield, even some of the short tight end passes to Andy Reid are just an extension of the run game. So when we start talking about some of those things, he might bristle a little bit and say, well, sometimes we throw the ball because it's a run play. And Andy Reid's, I think in Andy Reid's mindset, almost everything is a throwing play.
Yeah, it's put them where they ain't, right? I can get behind that if it's situationally correct. The question becomes, is the run does a number of things in part of the foundation that it provides is play action. They only threw 5 play action passes last week. I don't think that was enough. And I think particularly in this ball game, that has to be something that is used more. But they also took a couple of shots and for the most part failed. We can talk about Mecole Hardman and what's going on with him. We can talk about a number of things. But in my mind, the same thing has to happen. There will be shots available. If you understand where Jordan Poyer is on the field at all times, there will be opportunities elsewhere. And my only goal for Patrick is to just stay away from Poyer because the guy's got a knack, and I think he's kind of due. So I just want to see that go that way. But if it's your call, are you continuing to take shots with the guys that have been on the field of late, MVS until a couple of weeks ago, Mecole Hardman now, or are you trying to pick and choose your explosives in a different way, in a different format?
Well, I mean, to me, it's going to, again, depend on what kind of looks the Chiefs are getting. I mean, and the Dolphins gave the Chiefs some advantageous looks the other night, which was why Mahomes felt comfortable taking some shots deep. And none of those deep shots, really put the ball in danger. So that's why I'd be perfectly fine with it. But to your point, I mean, if you're getting some double teams and Poyer's a great example of that. I mean, that's not a guy that you want to throw the ball to if he's over the top. You got to be careful with that. So, yeah, to me, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if you just didn't see the Chiefs take a lot of deep shots, because I think that the Bills are going to be more, protective of the deep ball. So I think that they're going to force the Chiefs to kind of play underneath a little bit. There's absolutely no reason, if you're the Chiefs, to be throwing the ball deep in the double coverage. I mean, we've seen this season that's not going to work. You're either going to get an incompletion or a turnover. You're not going to get the big play that you're wanting. But and I don't see that the Bills playing some of the, bringing some of the blitzes that the Dolphins did. That was one of the things that really, played a lot into what Mahomes did, taking some deep shots because they were getting 0 blitzes, and he was ending up with one-on-one matchups. And it's like, why not take a shot? I mean, now it didn't hit because right now there's just no consistency for that offense in the deep game, and it was a tough night to be throwing the football deep period anyway. So I just still don't have a lot of faith in the deep ball connection. I might if you're throwing it to Rashee Rice, because I think that guy can just go about and just get about anything right now. But other than that, I mean, I think you're going to have to play the same game that Mahomes played last week, which is ball control offense. Don't put the ball in jeopardy. Take what the defense is giving you. And I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, the Bills are going to play, because of their personnel, because they don't have the same injuries that the Dolphins did. Bills are going to play a completely different defense than the Chiefs saw last week. And the Chiefs will have to adjust to that.
Yeah, I think so as well. And if I had a message for Sean McDermott, it'd be like, hey, everything's fine. Come after him. It's okay. Send your boys. I think that would work out very well for the Chiefs. The question is, how do they feel about themselves? What's going on in the locker room right now, especially with some news that happened today? So coming up after the break, we're going to get into where they go from here inside the building like only Matt Derrick can tell us. We'll be right back after a message from our pals. This time of year, it's tough. The weather is cold, especially in Kansas City in the Midwest. It is getting even worse out there. And if you want to be prepared for some of those cold snaps and some of the things that they bring, you might want to start looking into some antibiotics. And we have a friend of the company that can help you out in that they provide exactly that. Get you prepared. Have that peace of mind so that you're ready. The Jase case is a pack of 5 different antibiotics to treat bacterial infections, respiratory illnesses, the whole 9 yards. All the stuff that can happen to you, especially this time of year when attacks of the cold, dry air are coming at us constantly. They're going to hook you up, and it's a unique situation. It is all online at jasemedical.com. That's JASE Medical. And you'll go there, you'll complete a physician encounter, and it'll be reviewed by a board certified physician who can then actually have you prescribed and dispensed medications by a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of the cost and sent directly to you. Keep yourself prepared that way. Comes in a little zip case that you always have available should something hit that you need help with. It's never more important than to be prepared right now. Cold and flu season is real. Go to jasemedical.com and have a look at it. That's JASE medical.com, and use our code LOCKEDON. You're going to get $20 off of your order over at Jase. News late last night or early this morning by the time I saw it, which is funny because I was live over on the RGR channel, folks. If you haven't been there yet, please go check that out. That's my personal channel where me and my team do Chiefs coverage in a different way, and we cover the league as well. Watching Jase Kelce on the sideline just instantly clicked that, oh, wow, he really is taking it serious this time. And right now, as this stands in this coming ball game against the Bills, Travis Kelce is the lone surviving Kelce. Are we going to see more from Travis? Is like the elimination of one put more power into the one? Are they like wonder duos or whatever? Or does Travis like have to just manage his expectations and put his brother completely outside of himself, which is very tough to do for those two?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the latter. I mean, if you're Travis, I think you just absolutely have to set it aside. And, you know, and Travis, I think, obviously made his feelings pretty clear last week that even though he's thinking about retirement and it's in his mind, it's been in Jason's mind too. I mean, that's the reason why they did the documentary for Amazon. I mean, because 3 years ago he was thinking about retirement and it was about documenting a player retiring. And then it just ends up, you know, being a documentary about Jase Kelce and going to the Super Bowl and going through life. Yeah, I mean, it was hard not to look at Jason during the end of that game last night and not think that there were some thoughts going through his head. And now maybe it was just simply, you know, hey, you know, he's at the point where every season might be the last one and just frustrated at the way that this one ended. If he is indeed walking away, if he comes back, it wouldn't surprise me. But I think the fact that in Travis's mind, this isn't the last rodeo. I mean, I think that he obviously is at the point in his career where he probably thinks that every, you know, season and game could be the last because you never know if you're going to get hurt and what could happen. And, you know, so I think there's a certain mortality that Travis goes through with thinking about his career. But I don't get any sense that he's thinking about letting it get away. But I will say, I mean, this team and its mindset, I mean, I do think that there's a little bit of, hey, this is the last rodeo for maybe some of this group, and that there's guys that, you know, understand that they might not be a part of the team going forward. I mean, even though Travis Kelce knows that he's got a spot for life, hey, there's guys that are in their contract year, guys, you know, who don't have anything for next year. You know, there's some older players that might be thinking, hey, this is it. And I don't know that that's necessarily in anybody's mind, but I will say that the last few weeks watching this team, they've been having more of their swagger of old and more of the confidence than I've seen in a while. And I'm not sure that a couple of weeks ago that it was completely justified, but now that they've reeled off a couple of wins, including, I think, a pretty comfortable statement game against the Dolphins, I think that swagger is starting to get a little justified.
Well, and I think that that's key. Inside the locker room, you have to have that. And especially if you realize that there are some guys coming to an end. Do you play for Travis Kelce to help him get to that pinnacle one more time? Do you play for Willie Gay, who has admitted he's going to be shopping outside of there? I think there's still a significant possibility that Willie Gay's back in a Chiefs uniform, but you got to do what you got to do, and you got to take a look at it. And so that emergency, that coming together here in what is only a few weeks, even if you take it all the way out to the end, it's only a few weeks at this point. I think that's the huge motivational factor behind here. And I just wonder if there's anything else that can help lift it as much as playing for each other. I don't think so. Is there anything else in that room that you see?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're at the Chiefs level, that's one of the things that you have to have. I mean, you do have to be in the concept of you're playing for the person next to you, and that's why, you know, hey, when you're in Jason Kelce's position and you're in the position that a lot of these Chiefs guys are, I mean, if the end comes this week against Buffalo, you're going to see the same look on the Kansas City sideline from a lot of players, because they're not used to seasons ending this way. They're not, for especially for guys who've been around for a while, they're more used to the season ending in a Super Bowl, than they are ending in an AFC Championship game, much less the divisional round. So a season ending prematurely for this team is one of those devastating kind of things. I mean, because they just don't expect that to happen. But that's maybe one of the things about this season that has helped them out here at the end, is just to prove to them that this isn't easy. You're not, just because you've got Patrick Mahomes and you're the Chiefs and you've been to all these AFC Championship games in a row, doesn't mean you're entitled. You've got to earn it to get it back. And that's one of I think the things that this team needed to learn, and we'll find out if they did. But you're absolutely right. I mean, when it comes to this game in particular, this game of football, playing for yourself, it's not enough. I mean, you do have to be playing for the person next to you and for the other people in the locker room. And, and there's sometimes the talk about brotherhood and all that kind of stuff gets a little blown out of proportion. But there's times when I think that it really does ring true. And when it comes to the postseason, it definitely rings true.
That makes sense to me. So given the temperature of that locker room, how do you see this game unfolding?
Yeah, I mean, I just don't see this Chiefs team lacking confidence. We'll see once they get back into the locker room on Wednesday. We'll get kind of a tone setter to see what kind of mood that they're in. I know the last couple of weeks it's been a very loose group. And certainly when you get them on the sideline and you see the swag surfing, I mean, this is kind of the old swagger showing up again. That was missing for a long, long time this season, but it seems to be back there. They've got a ridiculous amount of confidence. I'm interested to say maybe a little bit about how Patrick Mahomes discusses being a road underdog, a position that he's never been in because he's never played on the road in the playoffs. He certainly has been a road underdog at times in the regular season, but this is a whole new situation for him. It's not a new opponent. These guys know Buffalo, and Buffalo is different than like Cincinnati, where I think that there's absolutely a real hatred between those two teams. Mm-hmm. I think there's a lot more respect, between the Bills and the Chiefs, and obviously the Bills have been even though they've beaten the Chiefs in the regular season, they have not been able to slay that postseason dragon. And how important that is to them. So I'm curious. I'm really interested to see how the Chiefs, kind of play the underdog card this week, because we all know how dangerous Patrick Mahomes is when he can play the role of underdog and villain. And he's going to get to be both this week.
I think that actually plays into what functions best for this team. You're going to have my preview and my prediction on Friday, folks, along with Chris Clark. He'll be back with us tomorrow. Day after tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll be talking with Joe Marino of the Locked On Bills and the Draft Network formerly. Now my draft conversation will come later in the offseason with him, but we have a lot coming for you. Matt's going to be covering all the bases from inside the locker room and all the way up till game time on ChiefsDigest.com, as well as Chiefs Digest here on the YouTube platform. So make sure you like, sub, and hit his channel, as well as this one. Since you're here, you might as well go ahead and click on, right? And we appreciate you checking out the Spotify and the Apple feeds, as well as all the audio platforms, because we're free 5 days a week plus on every platform that I can find and I can keep searching for. So we appreciate you all spending your time with us. Matt, thanks for the enlightenment. As always, you always keep us on our tones, and I very much appreciate that.
As always, Ryan, great to be with you, man. Take care, everybody.
Folks, have a great day on Wednesday, and we'll be back with you for crossover and game preview, Chiefs versus Bills.